The early days of G.I. Joe's relaunch in 1982 and 1983 can best be described by those of us who lived them as halcyon. The comparatively outlandish juggernaut known as Star Wars had finally met a worthy successor in the form of a group of understated Army soldiers, surrounded by a modest assortment of Army green weapons and vehicles. In its inaugural year, G.I. Joe was, but for the jump jetpack, solely land-based. However, in 1983, the Joes took their battle with Cobra into the skies big time, with the Cobra Fang helicopter, the Dragonfly helicopter, the now legendary Sky Striker, and two almost forgotten G.I. Joe vehicles. Vehicles that actually tried to fly.
G.I. Joe can fly. He's a real American hero, flying high in the sky.
Sold for 2 years, 1983 and 1984, before being discontinued, as was the pattern with many G.I. Joe toys, you'd think the Falcon glider and Viper glider would be as easy to locate as your average Sky Striker on the secondhand market. But oh, how you'd be wrong. These gliders were advertised as actually being able to take to the air. And technically that was true, but only because they were made of the thinnest, flimsiest styrofoam imaginable. I expect the material used on these gliders was only marginally more durable than the styrofoam labels they used to wrap around glass soda bottles you'd get in an 80s era convenience store. It's clear Hasbro knew these gliders were junk. How many other G.I. Joe toys do you remember that came with an emergency order form to buy individual components? In short, not many of these gliders survived their first few hours out of the box, let alone the past 37 years. When you do find them, they go for big bucks secondhand. However, that's not nearly the end of the story. The glider was one of the crappiest toys ever made in G.I. Joe history. That's undeniable. But like the deep pits and scars in the soil of French fields that keep the evidence of World War I in our present day, the G.I. Joe gliders have left behind evidence of their existence. Pop culture fossils that remind collectors of the vehicles that have been virtually lost to time. Unlike Star Wars toys, G.I. Joe vehicles often came with figures as drivers or pilots, and the gliders were no exception. The Joe's version, the Falcon glider, came with a recolored version of Grunt in desert tan. The Viper glider had a unique Cobra pilot, a Cobra enemy but with a silver officer's emblem on his chest instead of the red emblem for the standard trooper. Once their gliders cracked up, at least you walked away with a somewhat unique figure for your collection, assuming they survived the crash. Of the two figures, the Cobra Viper pilot is the harder to find secondhand, likely due to troop building tendencies amongst collectors. Cobra soldiers of any variety are like Imperial stormtroopers. They attract the most OCD collectors like bug lights. And if you were a really on-the-ball kid, you kept the file cards for these figures as keepsakes for those treasured 10 minutes with your glider. At that point, the pilots were effectively orphaned, as they did not come with weapons. But all was not lost. Thanks to the G.I. Joe Battle Gear pack of 1983, you could outfit your tan glider Grunt with a matching backpack and rifle. It was as if Hasbro knew these weapons would be needed. Because the very next year, the Vamp Mark II with a desert-themed clutch would hit store shelves, and there's no denying how well these two figures go together. The Cobra Viper pilot didn't have any weapon options in 1983, but there were a few places he would fit right in. He could become the pilot of the Cobra Fang. He could become the turret operator of the Hiss. Or you could doom him to be the permanent operator inside the snake armor.
Guys, are you out there? It's really hot in here and hard to move and hard to breathe. Guys, it smells like corrugated metal and sawdust in the summer in here.
What a wimp! In 1984, the Battle Gear set finally provided extra Cobra rifles in blue, so your downed Viper pilot would have a fighting chance outside of a vehicle. Occasionally, the support frame for the glider, the sole piece of plastic on the toy, will also survive down the decades. This piece had a peg to fit the pilot onto, and an elastic band, which never survives, was included to secure him to the glider. Regardless of where your glider pilot figures end up in your collection, the vast majority will never see their vehicles again. Even if they are riding shotgun with clutch or flying the Fang, they're always something of a square peg in a round hole in the display. You know the real story, they know the real story, and everyone around them is too polite to say anything. Hey Grunt, did you hear about that guy? That's the guy that lost his vehicle, and now they won't give him a replacement, and he just hangs out at the headquarters. What a loser! He kinda looks like you too. I don't see it. And the fading legacy of the Falcon and Viper gliders isn't helped by Hasbro reusing their names a few years later for two very well-known figures in the line. Grunt, the new recruit is talking to him now. I heard to add insult to injury, they gave the new recruit his intended code name. Oh, burn. But like a great campfire story, the love for those styrofoam gliders remains on the minds of some Gen X kids. And recently, one intrepid Joe fan did something about it. Eric at Screamin' Amin' Customs made a limited run of 100 recreated Viper gliders, complete with a recreated box minus the figure window, and a 3D printed exact replica of the support frame, subtly adjusted to fit both vintage and 25th anniversary style Joes. The Viper glider itself is a reimagining of the original, with an altered camo pattern on top that you'd only notice with a photo comparison. And the entire wing is now made from a far more robust foam board material, so it will hold up to handling and long-term display. Unlike the original 1983 version, there are no ailerons cut into the foam of the main wing, likely due to the thicker material it is made from. The best part is that Eric's glider can accommodate either his provided support frame or the original vintage support frame if you wish, making it possible for all of your orphaned glider components to find a new home. Keep in mind, these are display gliders and do not fly on their own. Eric has hinted he is working on a limited run for the Falcon glider to complement the Viper, and I cannot wait. The early years of G.I. Joe have always been my preference, but the overall poor quality of the original gliders combined with the stratospheric prices made them totally undesirable in my collection. But thanks to Eric's efforts, one of the earliest G.I. Joe action figures can fly high again. The fans are doing the best work. Oh no, here we go now. We get it, Gary. You got a new glider, you're stoked, you're awesome, we're happy for you. Give it a rest. Flying high again, come on and join me. Oh, you can't, cause it's a one-man glider. Oh, bum bum. Hope you enjoyed that, everybody. If you want to see more videos about G.I. Joe, you can watch our G.I. Joe playlist here. And if you just want to see more videos about fans doing the best work, you can watch our fan-made toys playlist here. And now I'm going to figure out where I can hang this amazing glider.